This is Brighter Rays, and this week we are looking at Genesis chapter 31, 43 through 55. And this study is called Between Me and You. So that's what we're going to be looking at this week. Now, if you remember, this is our it's our third week looking at this lengthy passage about Jacob leaving Laban's house. We've heard Jacob's argument that he gave to his wives as to why they should leave. We also heard Rachel and Leah's description of how they've been mistreated by their father and their agreement with Jacob that they should do what God has said to do. Now, while Laban was away shearing his sheep, Jacob left with his family and headed for Gilead. But Laban found out what happened and chased Jacob down. Laban confronted Jacob and accused him of trickery and of theft. So that's not a very nice thing. He doesn't come and just talk to him. He comes to accuse him, which is not something that we as Christians ought to do. Now, Laban searched through all the tents of Jacob, but did not find his stolen idols, which actually Rachel had hidden. Remember, she put them in her saddle and was sitting on them. Now, after watching Laban go through all of this stuff, Jacob becomes angry, he becomes furious. And he unloads his anger. He berates his uncle, his father-in-law. And it's a very short tirade against Laban, at least what we have recorded in Scripture. Jacob complained of the years of mistreatment at the hands of Laban, which is what the 20 years were all about, really. And he cited examples of that, too, to Laban. He gave him different examples of what he did to him. In verses 43 through 55, we get to see what happens next. And, will these two men settle their disagreements? What's going to happen? Will there be peace between these two? We'll see the answers in this study. In verses 43 through 44, the first two verses, we find a proposal for a covenant agreement between Laban and Jacob. Laban wants a covenant. And in verses 45 through 54, we read of the different elements of the covenant. You have a covenant, there's an agreement. Any kind of contract that you're going to make, there's always different elements that make up that contract. And so we get to see that here in these verses. And then finally, in verse 55, is the departure of Laban. Laban leaves. He actually leaves the record of Scripture. We don't see anything else of him after this. He kind of disappears after his connection with Jacob is done. And so that says something too about being connected to God's people. So join us next time, join us tomorrow, and we'll start with the first section of the study called a covenant agreement, and we'll look at verses 43 through 44 and see what Laban does here, what Jacob does, and how they finally begin to work out this relationship that they have. It's not a good relationship, but it is a relationship. And so we'll see how that plays out here in this passage.